Hello everyone, welcome back to Retro Computing Ranch. Today I wanted to talk about floppy drives in the sense of getting them cleaned, repaired, and ready to use with Greaseweazle. This is going to be the second part of the Greaseweazle series. In the first part I talked about software. In the second part we're going to cover a little bit on drives, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So this drive, much like a lot that you'll find, is pretty grungy. It has a whole bunch of fuzz and dirt and just stuff everywhere. So the first thing I like to do is get a stiff bristle brush and just kind of clean everything off so that we have some room to work here and we don't have a bunch of stuff getting in our way. Now, we don't necessarily have to worry about any of this getting on the heads because we're going to clean the heads as well. So that kind of got that cruft out of the way. Let's flip the drive, and usually on the bottom side of the drive they're in pretty good shape. There's not a whole lot of issues that you'll see, although on this one I can see that the jumpers, there's a couple of bent jumpers here. So I like to get a small screwdriver or some other type of pry tool and just get everything straightened back out so that we're not shorting anything out. There's another one there. You want to be careful to not damage anything on the main board, no traces or anything like that. But just kind of bend the pins back into position, make sure that none of them are touching and that they're fairly straight in case you do need to put a jumper on those posts. So at this point everything is looking pretty good there. Now, of course, you will want to check your jumpering. When you're using these drives with the Greaseweazle, you just need to make sure that it's set for either PC or Shugart, and that you're talking to the correct drive, whether that's drive 0, drive 1, drive A, drive B, however you're going to refer to them. The other thing I like to do on a lot of these drives is check to make sure that everything is still plugged in where it needs to be. Now, of course, this is a common drive. This is a TEC FD55 GFR. That is a very common drive that's used with the Greaseweazle because it is very compatible with a lot of different discs. Now, it is a high density drive, so if you need to write to like double density drives, then you'll need to use something older. In my case, I have an old Fujitsu that I'm using. This is a Mitsubishi M4851 drive. And I've gone through it the same way, made sure that all of the jumper pins are straight, there's no damage to the main board. While we're here, I want to talk about drive cables. So a lot of times on your older 5 1/4 drives, you have this card edge connector. You want to see if you can get a floppy drive cable that is keyed on both this connector and keyed on the connector that plugs into the Greaseweazle. As in this raised block here, and on the card edge it'll have a little divider here that fits there onto the slot in the card edge so that you can't reverse that connection. And the same thing for the key on the Greaseweazle side. It makes sure that you've got it plugged in the correct place. Now, of course, you do have the marker for pin 1, and you can match that up to the striped edge. That's usually a red stripe. I've seen blue stripe before as well. So now that we have this drive reasonably cleaned off, and we're going to just check our connections here. I can see a little more crud down in this area. Yeah, there was quite a bit there. Got it. Okay, so now what I want to show you, and let me check that I still have this in frame correctly, is how I go about cleaning heads. So you want to make sure that you use an isopropyl alcohol that's 90% or better. Isopropyl alcohol. I've already wetted this with the isopropyl alcohol. I bend it right behind the tip itself. And then I will use a tool to lift up the head. Now you don't want to lift it very far. You want to lift it just enough so that you can get the Q-tip in there. If you lift it too far, you mess up the spring tension, and then the heads won't ride correctly against the disc. So I just get in there, and I let go of it, and I wipe it back and forth. But not too aggressively. Nice and easy, just so that you can clean any crud off of the upper and lower heads if it's a double-sided drive. And then you want to let that dry nicely for a while. While you're here, you want to make sure that everything else looks like it's in good order, that tabs are writing in their correct places, and that nothing seems out of place like a spring hanging out or anything like that. So the other thing that you can do on these drives is you can lubricate the rails. And I don't have the lubrication that I use here with me, but I've been using Lock Lube. It's a nice dry lube that doesn't leave behind a bunch of residue. It's meant for like the kind of lock that you would use on a key or gate or something like that. Sorry, like a storage unit or a gate, something along those lines. And I just put usually 1 drop on the rail in front of the carrier on each side and 1 drop behind, and just exercise it back and forth a couple of times. You just want to make sure that you have nice lubrication in there so that that carrier assembly is not sticking. After that, you can hook the drive up, power it up, and make sure that it works correctly by testing it with the Greaseweazle. If you do a read from the Greaseweazle and you're getting magnetic fluxes on both heads, and you are using a 2-headed drive, then you'll know that the drive is probably in good shape. Now, there are a lot of people that I've seen online that will take and build an enclosure that includes 1 or 2 drives and the Greaseweazle and all the cabling, and it's all enclosed. And that's great if you know you're going to be using good quality clean discs. But, like for instance in my case, where I have several hundred very old discs from K-Pro and Color Computer 2 and IBM PC, and they may not have been stored as well as they could have over the years. Those discs could be fairly dirty. You can, with some effort, clean the discs. That is a lot of work. You can just take and put them into the drive and read them, but in my experience with doing the K-Pro discs recently, I would have to clean the heads about every 15 or 20 discs because they were so dirty that they were contaminating the head, and then I would start getting bad reads or no reads at all. So I had everything open while I was doing that. Now, if you're just using this to write media for a system that you're going to be working with, and it's reasonably clean, like for instance new old stock in the package media, then you could probably get away with putting the whole thing into an enclosure and running it that way. I think that would be fine. If you're going to be in a situation where you're reading old questionable media, you probably want to have at least a way to have quick access to the heads so that you can clean them. Now that is another reason that I like these TIAC drives, is everything is accessible from the top. I do have several drives, and they're good drives, but they hide the head assemblies underneath the circuit board. And so when you go to clean it, you have to take out 4 or 5 screws, fold the board back, clean everything, put it all back together. It's inconvenient. These are a well-known, common, well-understood drive. You can get data sheets for them, and they just work really well. But like I said, this would be good for like double-sided high-density media, basically anything that's 96 track per inch. They're great for that. They'll even read lower density media, but you're not going to be able to write lower density media because you really need a 39 track drive, 40 track drive to do that. Is that right? Maybe that's 48 track per inch. Regardless, if you're going to be working with the older single-sided low density or double density discs, you're going to need an older drive for that. So it's good to have both on hand. And that will lead to some switching, because if you have a low density, double density 5 1/4 disc, a double density, high density drive for working with newer media, and a 3 1/2, then you're in a situation where you have more drives than the Greaseweazle will support. So you may have to switch back and forth, or just get another Greaseweazle. Whatever works for you. Greaseweazles are not that expensive, so both of those are an option. Anyways, I think that's pretty much going to cover it. We're doing a quick video today on this. It's straightforward, but it is important. So if you have any questions, comments, make sure to leave them down below. Thanks for hanging out for the whole video. I really appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to stay tuned. We've got more interesting content coming up. In fact, I've been deeply reading some documentation on a 1980s, early 1980s vintage Unix system. I may have 3 of those coming my way. And so I think we're going to have something really cool to dig into very shortly. And these drives and the Greaseweazle are going to be instrumental in that project as well. So keep watching, stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed, leave a like on the video. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.